Hello, Facebook friends and followers. I wanted to come on here. I felt led to come on to Facebook today because it is Martin Luther King Day. And I'm looking at this quote right now from him, and it says, "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." And growing up, I never really understood. Maybe I didn't take an interest in it. Maybe it didn't affect me the way it would affect other people who look different than I do in the US. But I didn't know who Martin Luther King Jr. was, or why his life and his legacy is so incredible and admirable and honorable. I grew up in a white middle class neighborhood, and we had exactly one black male student in my high school, my class that I graduated in, and I'm still connected to him via social media, which is part of why social media is a positive tool. So I look back even at history. I never liked history growing up. It didn't interest me. It's so funny because I have a little boy now who is so passionate and he loves history so much. So I'm learning to love history through my 7-year-old son's interest in it. And now I just have a greater appreciation of history, having grown older and experiencing life, being able to appreciate it more. But even I think about history and I think about, Martin Luther King Jr. and I think about Black History Month. They didn't teach history in the way that I'm learning it today through my own reading and my own life experiences and interactions and being surrounded by cultural diversity. And it's so important because being around people that are not like you removes ignorance, and it allows you the opportunity to get to know people who don't look like you and to break down barriers of hatred. And growing up as a little girl, I saw racism even within my own family. And I will never understand racism. I don't have that in my heart. I do not understand how somebody could be treated less than or disliked because of the tone of skin that God created for an individual. And it breaks my heart to know that people have been abused and mistreated throughout history simply based on the color of their skin. And in my own family, I witnessed from the time I was a little girl, and I couldn't understand the tensions experienced in my family because of interracial relationships. And all I could understand as a little girl is that I didn't see, this is going to make me emotional, I didn't see some of my cousins growing up who I loved and I was attached to because of racism and family conflict. I could never understand that. Because of Facebook, I was able to reconnect with those cousins, and although those relationships were affected because of issues that I don't understand, I at least am now reconnected with those cousins that I missed growing up. And then I think about what I experienced in high school with being around predominantly white individuals. I didn't experience culture. I didn't experience diversity. I didn't get to listen to other people's experiences and some of the struggles that they dealt with along their journey simply because of the color of skin that God gave them when they were fearfully and wonderfully created. But then I went to Wayne State, and that's where I earned my Bachelor's of Science in Psychology. And I loved it because I was surrounded by so much diversity and people from all around the world, and people who looked different than me and had different experiences than me. And I love culture, and I love diversity. I love learning about other people and their journeys. And then after I graduated from Wayne State in Detroit, I worked as a certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor. And within my dating life, I dated people that were of different skin tones than I am. And I loved a lot of people who look different than I do. And then I went to Michigan State for medical school, where I earned my degree as a doctor. And then after I started my career in medicine, I got hit by a truck, and that led us to Grand Cayman, Cayman Islands. And I look different than a lot of people who live in Grand Cayman. I have sat in waiting rooms where I and my kids are the only people with white skin. And growing up in Michigan, in the Detroit area, I remember sitting in waiting rooms where there would be the complete opposite. There would be all white people and then one person with dark complexion. And having now experienced that, I see how somebody could be uncomfortable, and when you're the one that is different, and it's you can't be, some people will say I'm colorblind, but how can you be colorblind? And that's kind of ignorant. Like, why would you want to deny what makes somebody who they are, and the complexion of their skin, the color that God created them? Why would you deny that part of them? My kids, they recognize if somebody's got brown skin, black skin, white skin, and that's how God created them. And I am so grateful that we have had the opportunity to live in a country, although it hasn't been perfect, as I've shared my struggles with our life in Grand Cayman as expats, but I am so grateful for the diversity that my children have experienced. In Grand Cayman alone, there are over 100 nationalities represented. It is much different than the upbringing that I had, and it has allowed my children and my family and me to meet people from all over the world. And I've shared in the past in different work that I've done, we have so many more similarities than we have differences. And then a conversation I was having with my husband the other day, I talked about Black individuals in particular having gone through slavery. And I have such an admiration for the survivors of slavery. These are the strongest of the strong. I cannot imagine what the journey, that adversity would look like. But to know that if you are a generation past a family member who survived slavery, the amount of strength to have to get through such hardship, that's power, that is strength, and I have such admiration for it. And so when I was reading more on the life of Martin Luther King Jr. today, to learn more and to pay my respects to a man who fought for equality and love and faith like Jesus, I just have such a deep respect for Martin Luther King Jr. and his work now. And having had some of my human rights violated, I know how it is hard and how much courage you need to have to be able to speak out and to speak truth when some people don't want to hear it. And just the amount of fortitude and courage it took that man to be able to do what he was called to do in life. I have such a deep respect for his life and his work now. So when I was growing up, I never really understood what Martin Luther King Day was all about, but now I do, and I just have a great respect for his work. And in reading his biography, it talked about how he had fallen away from faith. And it wasn't really faith that he fell away from. He fell away from religion, which is not the same as faith. It's not the same as God or Jesus. And then in the biography, which I'll put in the comments section, it talked about how later on he came back to his faith, and he talked about how inequality was not God's will, and how could it be. So I just felt led to share a couple thoughts today and to share some of my experiences, which has allowed me to appreciate his journey and to empathize in a way that I couldn't when I was younger. So have a great day and fight for what's right.